All right. Welcome, everybody, to this year's Civic Tech Innovation Forum and Gem Fest. We are so happy that you've joined us for our third virtual hangout with this year's exhibitors. My name is Nati Mukajwa, and I'll be moderating today's conversation, today's hangout. These conversations are meant to be very easygoing conversations where people sort of talk about their work. They're not the very serious things. These are obviously in this worked really well with the exhibitions that they put out on the website. So if you are wanting more information, please visit our website to see the information about the exhibitors here today. Our theme this year is Africa Flows. The theme for the conference is Africa Flows. The theme comes from the idea that from the outside looking in, Africa may look like a continent whose problems are ever increasing and seemingly impossible to resolve. However, if you look closely enough, you will see that there are among us a lot of people helping move the continent forward. Sometimes they do this singularly, and many times they do it as a collaborative effort. This year, we look at how innovators have contributed and adapted to current changes in tech while testing their abilities to make sense of the new realities they find themselves in and proactively plan for future technological advancements. Through this year's demonstrations and sessions, we hope that we can demonstrate that indeed Africa flows. With that, we'd like to welcome you to today's conversation. But before we begin, I'd like to play this video for you, which will help us to set the scene for the conference, really, but also for today's conversation. So just give me a second, we'll put it up and we'll then proceed with today's conversation.
In this room lies a million treasures. In this room lies new and old ideas. In this room moves multiple streams of consciousness from which #Africa flows. In this room, new pathways will be drawn. This room will at the same time see the clashing of heads and the changing of minds. We will give credit to the people in this room when Africa rises and stands in its magnificent glory. This room is full of activists, researchers, innovators, thinkers, and leaders. It glimmers as it welcomes the flood of hope that is you and I. Welcome to #Africa Flows.
All right, welcome indeed to this year's conference and welcome to this exhibition. So what we're going to do quickly is welcome our speakers who you see on the screen here. So maybe let me stop sharing our screen. We're going to introduce our speakers, and we're going to go into the work that they do or the work that they're exhibiting for this year's conference. So I'm going to start with Sean, and you're going to say hello, and then go Sarah, and then go to Catherine. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Nati. Thanks so much for having me. Yes, so I'm Sean Russell. I work for an organization called Open Up. We're a civic tech organization based in Cape Town, South Africa, but we also have some staff and also partners and clients all around the world and a lot also throughout Africa. Are we going to pass on now or should I do my session later?
We can pass on and then we'll do your presentation a little later.
Cool.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Nafi. My name is Sarah, and I work on Code for Africa's business development team as a project manager. Code for Africa is part of the Charter Project Consortium, which is why I'm here today. I'm here to present a platform built by the Charter for the Charter Project. My portfolio includes civic technology, women's digital rights, and research for tools for media systems. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Nati. My name is Catherine Kimambo. I'm from Tanzania. I am the founder of an NGO called African Child Projects. the main aim behind African Chat projects is we aim to build bridges between Africa and the world. And the only way we see that is we try and see how technology can ease the daily lives of people in different areas, including democracy, be it edtech, around education, around health. So we try and see how technology can pave way to a better way of doing things in rural areas. And we have projects around edtech, around where we connect schools to internet. We have projects around democracy where we tried and built a portal that was funded by the Charter Project Africa together with the Democracy Work Foundation. That was at least assisting people in rural areas to enhance citizen participation.
Sure.
And
because I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to do the presentation already, and I'm gonna stop you right there.
Okay, sure. So we'll dive
You're
more
very
into that
sneaky.
during the presentation. Yeah.
Yes, you're doing very sneaky things there, Catherine. I saw your plot. We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back to that presentation, Catherine. I imagine everybody is looking forward to hearing a little bit about the Africa Child Project. So Sean Russell is from Open Up. He's going to talk to us about case file. Sarah from Code for Africa is going to talk to us about the Charter Project Africa. Catherine Kimambo, all the way from Tanzania, will be talking to us today about her work with the Africa Child Project. So, but we're going to start with my friend Sean Russell, who is going to be talking to us about case file, like I said. Over to you, Russell.
Thanks so much, Nati. And just apologies to everyone. I'm overcoming a bit of an illness at the moment, so I might be coughing a bit, but I'll try and keep it clean. So yeah, just a little bit about Open Up. We build tools, we open up data, we provide training which supports an active citizenry and helps communities and governments work better together. We work with organizations, we work with social entrepreneurs, we work with government, and we also work for ourselves sometimes. So we're not a single app or single tool organization. We're more experimental. We work on a range of different things, whether it's data projects or kind of building tools and whatever. So the tool I want to take us through today is called Casefile. And that's just one of the many tools we have built over the years. It's actually a tool that kind of started as an idea and as an experiment, and we are actually taking it to a kind of a phase 2 where we want to see, is it something that we can scale throughout South Africa, throughout Africa, and even globally. We believe it's a tool that's general enough to help a lot of people. So I'll take us through the app very quickly just now. I know I only have 5 minutes, but it was built with CAUSA, so the Community Advice Officers of South Africa. We built it with their case officers. It was very user research heavy, which is the way we like to build things. So that was actually one of the highlights of building this tool. And we think that we've built a tool that really speaks to what caseworkers at advice officers need. And those are our target audience, our target users for this particular tool, not law firms. One of the questions I was asked recently was, well, there are already apps and systems out there that you can manage cases with. It's a case management tool. What makes yours different? And we used those. I got a trial to a couple of them and see, what do theirs do that ours don't? And they have a lot of bells and whistles. There's a lot of fancy stuff in there, a lot of stuff about billing, but they don't speak to what advice officers need. They speak more to law firms and law firms who need to charge clients for money. They're also very complicated. And at the same time, I think ours does a lot of what theirs does, and it actually does it a bit better with UX because it's not as crowded. And where we want to go with it, we like I said, we want to scale it. We're testing it with small advice officers, law clinics, people who need to take their stuff from pen and paper and make it digital, manage their cases online, manage them in the cloud, to make their jobs easier, but also to make their files safe. So yeah, I'm just going to quickly run you through the sandbox version of the tool, which I can share the link with everyone in a little bit after my presentation. But I hope everybody can see what I am looking at. Nati, if you give me a thumbs up if you can see. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this is the basics of the app, and anyone can actually use the sandbox version. They can create, dummy cases and clients and whatever, and then play around with it and see if it's something they'd like to pursue. So, and just to say that we are making a bunch of really cool changes coming up to the system because we have kind of reignited our love and our mission for this tool. So, first page, client page. Me as a caseworker would have all my clients sitting here. So you can see here's my list of clients. I can add a new client. I could just put in all the details here, and then they would show up back on my client page. So then if I go into a client, you now get your client page. So that's kind of the structure that we have. So it's your list of clients first, and then within your client, the list of their cases. So we've got their personal information up here. And what's really nice is we can show detailed client information, and you can collect a lot of interesting stuff, including a recent addition to the system is being able to add dependents and their details. And what this allows kind of organizations or maybe funding oversight bodies is they can take a lot of this data that's anonymized, so you don't get the personal information of the individuals, but we can see the types of cases, the number of, let's say, GBV cases or eviction cases, and where they are, how long those cases usually take, what's been happening in those cases, and people can do research and monitoring and evaluation and use that to push for more money. So yeah, so that's the client page, and then you'll see a list of their different cases at the bottom. If I just go into the case, this is where the magic happens. All for a case, you've got a case number, you've got all the basic case information, a case history. So every time a new thing happens, a new thing will pop up here as a case update. We can open the modal, you can add a note or a meeting or upload a file, and then that will come into the case history, so that if you have to work with a different caseworker comes onto the case, they can quickly see, or maybe you haven't come back to this case in a long time, you can see, this is the history of the case. You can add a case summary over there, and then here you have your case updates. So if whether it is, like I said, a meeting or a note or a file, everything will be listed here. And then in your case files, you can just upload files, whether it's audio, video, or kind of your notes in like a Word document. It all sits here.
Right.
And that's basically the breakdown of how it works. You have a list of all your clients. Within a client, you have a list of all their cases, where they have one or multiple cases. And within that case, you can have all your basic case information. You can add updates. You can add meeting notes. You can add anything you want, so that you can come and find that information quickly. And then you can upload case files, ID documents, all those kinds of things. All in the cloud. It works on mobile. It's safe and secure, and you can access it from anywhere. And you can back it up, and you can pull the data off it.
I'm very interested in sort of the difference between, and maybe we don't answer this now, but we'll answer later. We'll open up for Sarah now. Very interested in sort of the difference between your platform and other similar platforms, and sort of who it caters for, right? Because you said earlier that you're not catering for lawyers or law firms, but you are catering for advice officers. And I think I'm very interested in the difference between an advice officer and a lawyer, and why they would need access to such a platform. But let's pin that question for later, and then move on to Sarah, who's going to talk to us about the Charter Project Africa. And maybe we can stop sharing there, Sean, and then we'll have Sarah share her screen. Okay, so Sarah, you go ahead and talk to us about the Charter Project Africa.
Sure. So I'm sharing my screen as I give a little introduction. What I'll be demoing for you guys today is the Charter.Africa platform. I've put the link inside if you want to access it yourself. But basically, it is a web and mobile platform with multiple interconnected functions and use cases specifically for digital democracy. So I think during these 5 minutes, I'm going to try and see as many use cases that I can go through using the platform. So opportunities for technologists, civil society actors, policy bodies, and grantees to see how they would interact and engage with our content, our libraries, and our community. Cool. Sorry, just sharing the screen and making sure it's the right one. All right, so this is charter.africa. So this is the homepage. As I said, there are multiple use cases and functions. So if I'm a technologist who is interested in digital democracy on the African continent, my go-to would be our resources, right? So I could browse our library of tools. I could browse this library of tools to see the existent civic technology tools that are out there. And I can browse according to theme, whether it's like, safety, advocacy, accountability, and governance. I can browse by location. I can browse by name if I have a tool in mind. And then I could select the tool and then see the kinds of data that is available on the tool, specifically coding data. So I can select go to repo. And I'll be redirected to the GitHub page. And from here, I can see, because it's open source, the kinds of codes and the kinds of resources that were used to build the tool. Also, if I am a technologist, I can go straight to see the contributors library, to see the other kinds of developers in the civic society, in this, digital democracy space who are building tools that are similar to mine. And I can, if they do have a GitHub account, I can just click this little icon and be redirected to the page to see perhaps if I could collaborate with them. Now I'm going back to the charter site, and now this time I'm going to do it from a completely different angle. I'm going to pretend I'm a policy wonk, I'm a policy expert. And so I'm not so concerned with the tools that are available on that are available. I'm more interested in the news around democracy in Africa, or podcasts around these democratic themes. Or perhaps I want to see very quickly what information is there around policy documents. And this is where I would just like to take a quick pause to discuss, like, really what the Charter Project is doing is like amplifying the main policy document for democracy on the African continent, which was, I guess, decided by the African Union. So this, it's a very technical or very policy-oriented document. So, these explainers here kind of break down statuses of that document is, and it does so in English, French, and maybe Portuguese. So we have 3 different languages. Now, if I am maybe a civil society or organization, and I want to see how I can be involved in the Charter Project, I would go to, for example, the Google group. And so, I need some kind of resource around civic tech on the African continent, I would join this Google group. Now, there are civil society organizations that have received grants from the Charter Project, and I'm sure we're going to be blown away by Catherine. But here's a list of other organizations. Sorry, I mentioned Catherine because she's also part of the Charter Project. But here's a list of other civil society organizations too that are building tools based off of this project. So, we cover like all AU member states. And so a lot of these grants are in multiple, like East, West, North, West and Southern Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah. So I think that's it for me for now. I'm open to questions for later.
Fantastic. Love that. Very short, sweet, and straight to the point. Damola has joined us somehow as part of our video. I'm going to stop your video, Damola, and then move on to Catherine. Catherine is part of the Charter Project Africa, as Sarah just mentioned, and she's going to be talking to us about the Africa Child Project.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, perfectly. So I shared our link on the chat where you can view the web app that we created. I will also share my screen to just give you a short demonstration of what we plan to do with the SEMA application. And while doing that, I will just briefly, once you see my screen, please give me a thumbs up. Perfect. So we are part of the grantees of the Charter Project Africa together with Democracy Work Foundation, where we built a portal that we call SEMA Tanzania. SEMA Tanzania is a Swahili dialect for Say or Speak Tanzania. The whole motive behind building this portal was we aim to see how technology can enhance citizen participation and rule of law in Tanzania. So, but then when we went through our research, we saw that there's a lot of knowledge that is missing between people understanding what democracy really is and people practicing democracy as a whole. So that's why we built this portal to bring together people from different calibers, be it government officials, youth, together with different people from different backgrounds to participate together in building what we call now the democracy that is fit for the people. So we built this platform that we call Sema Tanzania under a project that we call Ongea Demokrasia. Ongea Demokrasia means Speak with Democracy is the project now that birthed or gave way to Sema Tanzania. So in Sema Tanzania, we have 4 main features that are influenced by the surveys and different focus groups that we created. And I will just take you through the 4 features that we have. The first one being the blogs. We had different focus groups of people who have enormous knowledge on democracy. And so we are signing these people up as content creators because there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation amongst youth when it comes to democracy and matters of the sort. So So when we create these blogs, we give access to these people who have knowledge on democracy to give information to the people in public on what democracy really is. So these information are verified and are created by us, and then we allow them to be published in the portal. And so after they create these blogs, people are allowed to read and give comments and even share to different sources. But then again, there's a poll where there are different government documents that are shared widely, but most of them do not reach different youth groups. So we saw it fit that through the poll feature, youth groups are able to give out their views via the poll feature to maybe accredit different documents that are shared by the government. Some of them are shared for youth to give commentaries, but very few reach these youth groups for them to share their comments. So through the poll, there are different features where you can vote if you agree maybe with the bill that is being passed. You can maybe say what you agree, what you don't agree about it. And then these comments now, we want to see how they can reach the right sources and they can reach the right offices of the government so as they are able to get now the youth voices all together as a collective. But then there's a feature that we very much invested a lot of effort in. This is the forum, where it brings together the youth together with their governments in their local settings. They're able to, because in the previous discussions, we saw it fit that when you have like a village meeting, youth have to be present physically to participate in these meetings, to give their opinions. So with the invention of technology, we want to see how youth can also be able to participate in these meetings and for them to have their voices being heard without being there present physically. So with the feature of forum, you have discussions where village chairperson can host discussion with youth via this platform. There's different chat groups where you have chat groups where youth are present, different groups, people with disability, could be women, any groups that are there in the society. There's media where different files can be shared. You can share maybe if there's a bill that is to be passed in that rural area, if maybe there's any development project that is taking place, if there's a budget that has to be passed, they can share through the media and files, and then youth can go through these documents and give their views. But also there's a virtual meeting. Instead of them meeting under a tree or somewhere to give out their views, they can meet virtually and share these opinions so they're not left behind when it comes to participation. But also there's a feature that we call the poll in this in the forum, where they're able now to vote on different things. Maybe do you want to build the school now? Do you want to build the school later? What is important for you now? So through the poll, they're able to do that. And then there's a document vault, where with this, after the research that we did on August, we came to understand that when you speak of democracy, people understand it differently. There are people who just attach democracy to election, and there are people who maybe understand democracy in another way, maybe politics. So we want to give out different teachings or lessons that are geared to improve democracy, understanding of democracy for people in different groups. What is democracy really? So we'll have different podcasts that will be shared in this document vault and different documents that will be shared in local language for these people to access and maybe educate themselves more about what democracy really is. How can they participate? Why is their voice important when it comes to participation in democracy and building democracy? But also we are able to build this platform in 2 different languages. There's Swahili, that is the major language in Tanzania, but also there's English for people who want to, for example, people who are outside Tanzania who want to participate also in seeing how the democracy in Tanzania is shaping or is taking place. So in Swahili, people are able to view, download, share comments, participate in the poll, forums, everything in their local language. But also you can translate to English, where people from other nations can also participate in what we call Ongeana democracy or Speak with Democracy. So this is the portal that we have under construction until now. I think they're going to launch it at the end of October, and looking forward to seeing the traction that comes with it, the youth groups that will be involved, and how together are we able to speak with democracy and shape the Tanzanian democracy as a whole.
Right. Very happy. Thank you so much, Catherine. I think in the beginning you wanted to have all the other stuff you wanted to say now, but at the beginning, I'm hoping you covered everything now. I want to go back now to Sean and sort of entertain that question that we had spoken about earlier about the difference between an advisor and somebody who's a lawyer. And maybe let's start here. Who is the site made for specifically?
Yes. So originally it was made for caseworkers working at advice offices, and they had very specific types of clients that would come in, and those are the kind of cases they took, and they would do similar things. And what we tried to do was they had some systems. I mean, everybody's got a system. People walk in, this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And we spent a lot of time kind of trying to understand what the human system was and how it was working and how it wasn't working, and how can technology help? How can it support what they're trying to do instead of trying to be something completely new that they now had to learn?
Can
I
I
think,
ask, before you continue, just in case anybody doesn't understand what a caseworker is, can you start there?
yeah,
That what's a caseworker and why it's important for you to develop a platform specifically for them?
sure. So in our case, an advice office is kind of a paralegal office, usually in a more rural area. They are in cities and metro areas. You do advice offices here, but the ones, especially the ones we were working with, were mostly in kind of rural and out of the way areas. Often, they are servicing mostly poor people. There is not a lot of legal support out there. There aren't even legal aid officers in those that have to travel, which costs money, which people know is very, very difficult. And in a way, whenever there was some kind of a legal issue that people had, their only resort is an advice office. For so many people, the front line of accessing justice is not the police, it's an advice office, because they are people almost always kind of rooted in their community. They understand enough about the law without having to be a lawyer, but they understand the different services, whether it's hospitals, whether it's counseling, whether it's whatever it is. They're very, very connected, and they are kind of this way that someone who doesn't know what to do because the law is very, very complicated can then access those things and get a lot of support, and then often be referred, whether it's to legal aid or whether it's to a social worker or whether it's wherever they are referred. And they have a lot of clients and they have a lot of cases, and so that's who we built it for. Whereas lawyers deal with legal cases, and that's kind of very, very focused on what they need.
Yeah, and they have this platform accessible free.
It is free to Kausa and their advice officers, and the software is open source. We are working on a subscription model for those who can afford it. We're working with a paralegal, well, they're actually a legal office, so they are actually lawyers, but they're working in a pro bono space called the Wasafiri Foundation. And we're kind of testing out a business model with them, because unfortunately, with technology, it has to be maintained, and we have to improve it. And we have developers who we have to pay. No one in this works for free, so we're trying to find a way that it can be financed, that obviously makes it still accessible to those who need it.
I think one of the questions we've been exploring during this conference has been that of sustainability for platforms like yours, right? And I'm very interested in sort of how people sustain those things, and is it okay? And I think Amy is here in this chat, and she wrote a whole report with help of Open Up as well around how we can keep platforms sustainable. And I think I'm very interested in people in the room here, if they're able to share what their sustainability strategies are. Maybe we'll go to Sarah and Catherine, and then maybe you guys can talk about your sustainability strategies as well. Be very helpful for other people who are sort of establishing similar platforms to know how to go about sustaining a platform like yours without relying on financial aid from big corporates or anything like that. But I want to go to Sarah, who sort of developed this platform where that has a bunch of other organizations on there who are talking about the work that they do. You have case studies, you have resources there. Let's talk about why you thought this was important. I can't hear you yet, Sarah. I think you are on mute.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah,
Fantastic.
sure. So you were asking about the inspiration.
Yes. Okay, am I losing her? I think you're losing her. So maybe let me pause on Sarah for now and come to you, Catherine, and talk a little about African Child Project. And I'm very interested in sort of, when I saw it like the first time when I saw African Child Project, I don't know what popped in my head, but it definitely wasn't about lessons on democracy and things like that. And so very interested in how that name came about, but you can entertain that later. But also very interested in why this was important for you as somebody who's in Tanzania. Was this an issue of people don't know, right? Because we were talking to Mzalendo last week or the other week about their platform. So their platform is a parliamentary platform. So they're wanting to hear the conversation or to know about the conversations happening in parliament, right? And so they sort of make that information available for people. Your platform, on the other hand, is about educating people about democracy. Did you feel that this information wasn't accessible enough?
Yeah, I think as a youth myself, I see there's a need for a broader understanding of what democracy really is, because there's a lot of assumption around it, and mostly it's tied to politics. So whenever you say democracy, people speak about electing leaders and then leaders going into power and politics. So they do not see things like maybe rule of law or citizen participation. That is like the paramount of what democracy really is. So when we were sitting around and designing this program, first of all, we called it Ongea na Demokrasia. So we see it as a conversation between us and maybe this thing we call democracy. And for us to do that, people have to understand first what democracy really is. So we did a research to see the broad understanding of people around democracy. But then again, I think when you speak of the dynamic between rural areas and urban areas, there's this big disconnect, because in urban areas we can get information easily, we can participate in discussions online, offline, but people in rural areas are left behind. So there's still the traditional way of meeting up and getting information. If you're not there, you've missed out altogether. So we tried and see how can we bring this element of democracy online and make sure that it's not entirely saying bring it online, but how do we make sure that we are digitizing some parts of it to see that there's more, by just questioning ourselves that if we digitize some parts of this thing we call democracy, will it bring more citizen participation or less? So with that trial, we went and designed now the forum feature that what if we plan this. So it's trial and error to see what works and what doesn't. But so far, I see the response has been good from different government officials. They are more than willing to try it out, because for them, it's also about how a citizen participating in giving us their views and opinion for us to really implement these projects.
Was the idea to increase public participation? Was that the idea at first? Is that the problem that you had identified as, people in your country or in your area were not participating enough in matters of democracy?
Yeah, especially youth groups.
Was
Most
it
people,
just the fact that they're not educated enough, or was it an
um,
education thing or participation thing?
I think it's a chicken and egg type of scenario where if people are not well informed, they will not participate, but there are people
Right.
who are well informed, they still do not participate. So it's
Right.
that which one comes first. So for us, we saw it fit that education would go first, and then that would increase participation. But there
Now,
are
see,
areas where education is there, but still
yeah,
people are not participating, especially in urban areas. Youth are
right.
like, my voice does not count. So I want to reverse that situation and say maybe your voice counts. How about you try putting your voice in this platform and for your voice to be collectively aired out, maybe in those meetings where government officials are there, and for you to at least have a platform to express.
I'm hearing from what you said earlier that there is buy-in from people in government for your platform.
Yeah.
And so are we seeing, and so I want to sort of find out what the contributions of stakeholders are on your platform. And because I'd written a question about, who is in charge of putting up the information in the platform, right? So we're seeing that there's a bunch of documents that you are collecting. Who is in charge of putting up this information? Are you collaborating with government and sort of finding out what the most important information is right now? And what are your sort of data collection methods?
Okay, so for us, we have two sets of login when you're logging into the platform. There are people who we call guests. So this is like the general public who want to come in and access the platform. But there are also people who we call content creators. So these are the people who we verify, mostly from CSOs that have been existing for a lot of years, who have a huge information or background on democracy. And so these are the people who create our blogs, who create the polls, but the buy-in from the local government, they're the ones who control now the forums. So they create the forums and invite people from their constituents to participate, give out their views and all that. So
Right.
what we do mostly, we do not dictate, we mostly dictate what goes into the platform in terms of verifying if it's maybe taken somewhere in terms of what's that called? When you take someone else's work.
What's this called? Plagiarized.
Plagiarism, yes.
Yeah.
So when you create a blog, we have a system to identify if there's plagiarism of that work. But also there are a lot of could be abusive languages that go on into these platforms. So we have a filter for that as well. So that's the extent we've gone to in terms of verifying the contents, but also verify the people who create the contents. So we accredit these people and verify that they are suited for contents because they submit their bio, background, could be recommendation letters for them to be people who create contents for this platform. So
Right.
that's just to begin with, that's how far we've gone, but we're looking forward to in the future to see how other methods that can come in to make sure that the content we get is very well suited for the communities that we are out at.
Yeah, and I think we'll come back to this question that I just came out now, that came to my mind right now about the difference between people in urban areas and rural areas, and how you sort of ensure that participation happens in rural areas and that they're educated in rural areas. Because there's also the question around, digital accessibility in rural areas, right? Do they have this information, or are you doing other offline? Because again, I think we spoke about this in last year's exhibitions, that people sort of heavily focus on online stuff, right? When there is offline stuff that you should be doing as well, as a way of reaching your objectives of educating people and sort of letting people participate in matters of democracy. So maybe let's explore that when we come back. I want to go to Sarah now. And Sarah, I think the question we were asking before was why start this platform? Why was it important for Chatter.Africa to start?
Yeah, thanks for that question and for your patience with my technology challenge, ironically.
Africa.
Yeah. So, yeah, what necessitated the build of this platform was really this African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance, which, as stated earlier, supports like AU member states to fulfill their commitments like to democracy on a continental and national level. And so, in engaging with this document and in engaging with like the democratic situation continentally, a consortium of African and European organizations in the digital space and in the democracy space, kind of found the different kinds of stakeholders that would need to interact or with this document, and that's how the different features came about, right? And then also, so like we have like CSOs if we're thinking about the democratic space in Africa. We have like different national and multilateral organizations. We have technologists. And so when we're thinking around like, okay, how do we implement or how do we make this policy document more tangible to these different stakeholders, that's how we thought about the different features and resources and databases that we have compiled here.
Right. I'm very interested in sort of the case study, and I know Sean has asked a question here, and I want to sort of say to everybody else who's in the room as well, feel free to ask questions from our panelists here. Very interested in sort of the case study part of your website. You have this case studies that you sort of are documenting. What specifically are you documenting there? Because I think we had spoken earlier about people wanting to find out how other people sustain themselves. Do we have stories like that about how we sustain our project? What specifically do the case studies document for each of the initiatives on the platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I think about sustainability and I think about the various kinds of case studies that we have, so we have a bunch of different kinds of organizations. There are organizations that like build tools. We have organizations that like are more like digital governance initiatives. And then, so their main purpose is, I guess, to be involved in the civic society space and in the democracy space, but they're also building tools. And then we have, I guess, maybe other kinds of actors as well. So when I think about sustainability across these different organizations, I would say like if I'm looking at the code, for example, for the ones that are technology-based organizations, you'll see that like their projects are open source. But you can see like maybe their activity ends when their funding, their grant ends. Some of them do like make sure in their building of the platform, they make sure that maybe the platform has a life after funding ends. And by that I mean it's something that has a revenue stream even outside of their receival of funds, right? So they try to build in profitability for even after when funding ends. So that's what we see in a lot of like tech tools.
I think my question was relating to sort of the kind of case. So in the case studies, the kind of stories that you sort of, when I think of a case study, is that obviously it's going to have a topic that's sort of that a topic that they're trying to talk about, right? In there, that here's a problem that we had, and this is how we resolved. Do you make that difference between here's SEMA in Tanzania, and this is a problem that we had, and then this is how they resolved it? Is that what the case studies are covering?
Oh, okay. So do you mean the about page? So I'm just trying to, when you say case study.
So I think I might have a different understanding of case studies as when you do upload these case. So if you have an initiative and they say this is our case study, then obviously they're sort of solving for a problem. But it's all right. I think we can sort of move on to the question that Sean had about how people can upload their sort of initiatives on there. Were these for people who are part of the Charter Project Africa, or anybody else can upload their tools on there?
Anyone can upload. I will share my email address. It would be fantastic Well, and anyone can submit, but we still kind of manage the process of uploading. So it's not like, directly I'm a user and then I can, put in my details. It would have to go through Code for Africa, but we are open to people submitting their tools as long as it's in the digital democracy space. And then if it's open source, it's even better. So I've submitted my email for that. Yeah. So if you could share it, that would be
So
awesome.
another question is, how do we track success stories of the tools found on your tool? So that's what I was asking really about how, what are the case studies covering? Are we covering success stories?
Oh, definitely. Yes. In fact, we have a bunch of videos on like each case, which I can share with you later. But how we track is we base it off of I guess, the purpose of a project, right? So if a project, for example, was intended to create campaigns around this policy document, we're going to check the engagement metrics, right? How many people are they getting to view their campaigns? If the problem is that they're trying to address is perhaps to give maybe marginalized local voices more access to, share their opinions about certain local policies, we're going to see again, and it's going to be a little bit more nuanced than just, social media metrics. But again, we're going to check engagement metrics there. We're going to look at their data to see, okay, how many people are using your platform? And then even outside of how many people are using the platform, have you been able to escalate this perhaps to the national level, perhaps to the continental level? So we're going to go through these different ways to check the impact based on the initial purpose of the tool. Yeah.
Right. Fantastic. So Sean, you had said, so when you were demonstrating how the platform works, you said you sort of showed us that it's dependent on people, and you said earlier that it's very user research heavy. So and I want to admit, I think I'm trying to wrapping my head around it. So people upload their cases that they're working on, and then other people can see that. Is this a sort of a way for other people to learn about how other people resolved cases? Is this open to communities to just learn without having to consult advisors directly?
No. So it's for an individual case worker to manage their own cases.
Right.
There's strict data privacy controls on it so that, if you're my client and you come in and I'm helping you, your personal information is only seen by myself and possibly my supervisor. And we've built in kind of checks and balances for that kind of stuff. And I know that they do you fill in a form to say that they can collect your information. So it's very sensitive to POPI and especially people's private information.
Right.
What you can do is you can set up different permission levels so that, let's say there is a area manager or a provincial manager that could then see cases across, and then with the permission of the client, you can transfer a case or open a case up to two different caseworkers. If I'm transferring maybe from me to you or something, that's also possible. So yeah, so it's not really a learning tool in that way, but what can be a learning tool is the data that can get extracted from it. And if I could just share my screen very, very quickly, you can see the very simple dashboard that we created. That, I mean, this is dummy data, so it might not make sense, but you can look at how well a office is doing, or maybe a collection of offices is doing. How long does it take them to close cases? How many total cases do they have at any one time? Those kinds of things also make it quite different to a lawyer's ones, because we understand that advice offices are often funded by big grants and big grant making organizations. So, they always want their slice of the pie. They want their data. They want to be able to show that the money that they spend is making a difference. And if we can extract a lot of that data without the personal information attached to it, they can then have proof that an advice office is doing a lot of great work.
Right. Okay. So this is definitely not about. So this is definitely just made for the case officers who want to store information.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about a tool that we have here in South Africa that uses as an artificial intelligence to respond to people who have specific questions about certain legal matters, right?
Yeah.
And then so that responds to you. So that's definitely not how this one works right now.
Not this. We have had discussions with an organization about something like that, but that's not what this does at all now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fantastic. So if any of you are case officers want to manage your data, this is the place for that. Now, I want to go back to Catherine and sort of making the difference between offline and online, and sort of how you go about educating people who may not really have the sort of access that people in urban areas have.
Yeah.
Are we interested
So
in them at all?
yes, I think they are the center of what we are doing with digital democracy, because if you say digital democracy, then you go to urban areas, then you've not solved anything. So with the rural area, we've come up with different methods on how to reach out to them. And so we have something we call bulk SMS, where we craft different messages geared to educate people about democracy, just like 60 to 100 characters, where we send widely to different focus groups that we have. So people with featured phones are able to get also educated around democracy. But also we are exploring different methods or innovative ideas like shared smartphones. And we're also speaking to different government groups that are under the Ministry of ICT to see how people in these areas can get affordable smartphones to be able to participate in these actions. So if I just forgot to mention that our other projects are around connectivity in rural areas. So we've connected approximately 20 to 50 villages and schools as well. So we also see the digital divide being very real in these areas. And so whichever project that we bring on board, we also want to make sure that we are not leaving behind people who are unconnected, and we come up with different methods to reach out to them. But with digital democracy, those are what we have so far, but we are looking forward to seeing more innovative ideas coming to life, because we're just launching the platform. We don't want to leave anyone behind, because democracy is our daily life, is what we do daily, is what we live and breathe. So we don't want to leave a certain group out.
Right. I want to quickly ask the panel if any of you are interested in collaborators, or if you are working with collaborators right now. Let's start with collaborators and how people can find you if they're interested in sort of collaborating with you, or just to learn about the work that you do. So maybe I'll start with Sarah, and then Sean, and then Catherine will sort of wrap for us. Any collaborators, how can people reach out to you if they want to work with you in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for more civic tech tools. So I really loved Sean's question. And the best way to reach me is through email, or if you're available on Slack. I mean, you can still use my email to find me on Slack, but you'll get like quick answers, direct conversation. Yeah, so looking forward to connecting.
Fantastic. Sean, how do you collaborate with you? How do we reach, how do we find the platform?
Yes. So I sent a link to the sandbox version, which is above. That's sandbox.casefile.org.za. To get hold of us, just send an email to myself, which is Sean, SHAUN, at openup.org.za, or info, INFO, at openup.org.za, or you can go to our website and there should be a contact form or something on there. We respond very quickly to that kind of stuff. That's just openup.org.za.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's about it.
All
Or you
right.
can come to
Catherine,
our offices in Cape Town if you really want
yes,
to.
you can travel to Cape Town and see. It's a beautiful city. So if you want to see the city and open up, so you can go there. I want to go to you now, Catherine. How do we use your platform as well?
Okay, sure. So we are still out after a lot of content creators. So if you have any documents you want to share, you want to create content on our platform, the link is shared off the platform. You can review it, but I've also shared my email and LinkedIn. I'm most active with those platforms. So you can email me, you can just chat me on LinkedIn. We are more than, our arms are open. We are starving for content. So just come on board, bring to us content, and also engage with us, give us ideas of other platforms that you've seen
I think
that are
I'm
doing
losing Catherine.
something
Am I the only
similar,
one?
so as we can at least peer-to-peer learning page of
Okay.
operation. So
I'm sorry, I lost you there for a little bit, Catherine. I think we
can you hear
lost
me now?
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear
Okay,
you.
my internet was unstable. But yeah, I was saying that we are open to peer-to-peer learning. If you have any other platforms that we can learn from, we are open to people who want to create content on our platforms. My email and LinkedIn are there. So please reach out. We are starving for content because we are at the early stage of launch the app. So please welcome, come on board. I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Fantastic. Now, I will share the context, and I think Catherine will share if she has not done that. Sarah has shared on the group chat as well. I've shared our website, the Africa Flows website, the conference website, where you can see all of the exhibitors from this year. We'll upload this conversation up on the website, but also on our YouTube channel. So do have a look at that if you are looking to sort of catch up on something that was said here, or sort of, didn't catch a contact or whatever, do check out the website. A week from now, I want to say a week from now, we check out this particular conversation. It will up on our website. So for now, I will play this closing video, and then we will bid farewell to this year's exhibition Hangout. So just hold on for me, and then put that on presenter mode, and do that. There we go. Nope, it's doing the thing. There.
Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you soon. As you leave, remember, you are the one we've been waiting for. The Civic Tech Innovation Forum and JamFest is powered by the Civic Tech Innovation Forum and JamLab Africa.
All right, thank you. I imagine you feel robbed. You feel like this was not enough. I want you to visit our website to see all the information that you want to learn about. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for making time for everyone who is in the room here today. Yes, Sean says I should start a podcast. In fact, there is a podcast we have. It's called the Civic Tech in Africa podcast, where you can learn about all this other work that people are doing. Thank you so much, everyone. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.